dumpster fire, babies. How is everyone doing this morning? I hope that your day is off to a wonderful, fantastic start. If this is your first time here, hi, my name is Carrington. Not your first time here, but you have not yet hit that subscribe button or click the little bell, I invite you to do so. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, enjoy this type of content, give this video a thumbs up, and let's go ahead and let's dive on into today's video. So in my last video, I talked about my top 10 palettes of 2022. Now I'm going to talk to you about my top 10 least favorite palettes of 2022. So if you guys are wanting to know what my least 10 favorite were and why, then definitely keep on watching. So I have gotten rid of some of these palettes. I don't want to look through my whole entire collection trying to figure out what palettes I kept, which ones I didn't. So I'm just going to post pictures over here of the palette while I talk about them. So first up is going to be the Hip Dot and Rugrats Hanukkah collection. I really like that they did come out with like a Hanukkah collection, because I always feel like there's tons of like Christmas collections, but there's not really anything for like Hanukkah. And so I thought that was really cool, really innovative. Next of all, they did the Rugrats Hanukkah. That is one of my favorite episodes from the Rugrats. Do you guys remember that? When Tommy was baby Moses? Y'all remember that? That was a good episode. That was one of my favorite episodes to watch every year around the Hanukkah time. I'm not Jewish by any means, but that was definitely one of my favorites. Onto this palette, there were some pressed glitters in there. I am not a pressed glitter fan. Some glitter formulas I will kind of dip into and be okay with. This is not one of them. It's very, very dry. It's very, very crumbly. Even with a glitter glue, it'll fall down on your face. And I am not trying to risk my eyesight for a glitter. I am just not. Next of all, the color story doesn't really speak to me. It's like a lot of blues. I'm not a huge blue person. There were some, it's like blue and gold. Blue and gold does go together. I did find out. But again, it's just not really a color story that speaks to me. And also, Hip Dot's formula, their eyeshadow formula, I have yet to be impressed by it. I know. I have tried a couple of their palettes, including this one, and every single time I'm just disappointed by the formula. So on top of the color story just not being it, this palette I think I do still have for collector's purposes, because I love the Rugrats. I love the Rugrats Hanukkah collection, but outside of that, I wouldn't keep it. Next up is going to be the Too Faced 2 Femme. It was their butterfly palette that they came out with. I got a lot of hate on that video, but here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Let me just sit here and say, this is a pastel palette, okay? You do have to do a lot of like working with pastel palettes to get them to work. Usually it's best to like really like pack on the product and then lightly blend it out after you've got it really packed on. That's the best way to use those. Let me just say though, this wasn't a pretty expensive palette. This was a $40 palette, right? I have had pastel palettes that are maybe around that price point, maybe a little bit more expensive, but you don't have to fuss with it nearly as much. Also, they put a really weird scent into the palette that I'm not here for. But like the Give Me Glow Pastel Dreams, wonderful. Nomad has a pastel palette, wonderful. Simply Posh, no, it's not called Simply Posh. Why do I keep doing this? It's Cosmic Brushes Serenity palette. I just discovered that palette. It does have some pastels in it, but again, I'm not having to mess and fuss with it near as much as I was with this palette. And the thing is, there were even some neutrals inside of this palette, and it still was not great. The mattes weren't super pigmented, as I've stated, but then the shimmers also weren't really standoutish to me. I get it where it's like the mattes you have to work with more, so at least make your shimmers incredible, right? Like Glamlight has that ice cream palette. Those shimmers, pastel, and incredible. This just missed the mark by like just in every category. It just, okay. I might get a lot of hate for this one too, and I'm okay with that. This is going to be the Pat McGrath and the Bridgerton palette. I personally didn't really care for either of them, but I did like the second one just a little bit more. In terms of the first one, it just was not it for me. There were the 2 pink shades that were very, very similar, and they were satin. You only had one matte and the rest were shimmers. And you get 6 shades for $65. It's just, the pans were also really, really tiny. So like for me, for like the price point, the colors being very, very similar, the quality not being as great, it just, I wish I would have saved my money. I felt like it was like fear of missing out. And I never even watched Bridgerton, so I'm not sure what I was having a fear of missing out on because I didn't even watch Bridgerton. Next up is going to be the Morphe with Mickey Mouse. I literally have it sitting right back there. Yeah. Listen, I am not a huge Morphe formula fan. I know Morphe's really hit or miss. You either love it or you hate it. Like, I have not met anybody where it's like middle of the road. It's either you love it or you hate it. I just don't care for it. I just don't care for it. I struggled with using this. I tried to create a look on camera. I thought it came out pretty good, but it did take a lot of like building, blending, packing to even get where we were going with this. And even then, I just wasn't overly impressed. I tried using it again and still, I'm just not impressed. I think I'm keeping it because it's like a Disney thing, and I love Disney. Disney is my best friend. Me and Disney go way back. The reason why we have Disney Plus in my household is because of me. I know I have kids. My kids don't really care to watch Disney Plus all that often. I want to watch Disney Plus. So that's the reason like I kept it. I'm going to be honest. I don't think I own, besides that palette, any other Morphe palettes because I just don't care for their formula. If you're somebody, you love their formula and you can get it to work, that may have been a palette that you might like, but there's nothing. I don't really care about their company ethics. I don't care about their formula. That palette was really hard to work with. It was patchy. It was hard to blend. It just all kind of blended together eventually. It just wasn't for me. So number 5 in this is going to be the Urban Decay Wild Greens palette. I will say, like, performance-wise, like, this wasn't bad. I thought, like, the packaging was really cute. Like, you just, like, opened it up, you know. It was cute. I think the issue with me is I wanted this to be very much a green palette. It was more neutral with some pops of greens. And so, for me, I was just overly disappointed. And to be fair and to be honest, I don't generally really care for Urban Decay's formula. I know when the Nakeds were a huge thing, like I bought like the Naked 2, the Naked 3, the Naked Heat, Honey, all of that. But now that's like discovering other types of brands, especially like indie brands and things like that, with Urban Decay being as expensive as they are, I just really think their quality should be up a little bit more as well. It's just not. And then I was so disappointed because Wild Green. So I'm thinking like, yes, a really nice green palette. And then for there to be like, what, 2 green mattes and like 2 green shimmers, maybe 3 green shimmers. I was just like, this world is leaving me unimpressed. Next up is another Pat McGrath palette. She had released this like really tiny little purple palette that had like 6 little shades in it. And wow, that was real disappointing. That was even more disappointing than the Bridgerton, if we're going to be honest. Number 1, it was so tiny, it's like this big. Like as big as this is, only in a square. That's how big this was. It wasn't very big. Next of all, yeah, granted it was cheap, but for as tiny as it was, it should have been cheap. But the formula was just not there. There was nothing, when I used this palette, I wasn't like, yes, this is the Pat McGrath formula. Instead, honestly, if you would have given me that palette and I had no idea, and you took off all the outer edge, right? It just came in that purple box with no words on it. Didn't say it came from Pat McGrath. I never would have guessed that was a Pat McGrath palette. I never would have been able to have guessed that. I honestly would have guessed Morphe, maybe Urban Decay, right? Some Milani, a drugstore brand, CoverGirl. I would not have guessed that that would have been Pat McGrath. That was real disappointing and hit the mark. And for it being like, what was it, like $39 or $29? For it being like this tiny, no thanks. I would have rather just saved my $29 and saved up another $100 to get one of her bigger palettes. Because that was not good. That was patchy. That all blended together. It literally, when you would put it in one place, like you would, you know, how you like pick some up and then you go to like put it on your eye and then start blending. Wherever you put it first, your brush landed first, is where the bulk of the shadow went. It was not good. The shimmers weren't even that great either. Next up is the Too Faced, the Pumpkin Pie, the Second Slice palette. I really liked collecting those. I like I have both the gingerbreads. I have the original pumpkin pie. I got the cinnamon and swirl. So I saw this and I was like, oh, I need to buy this so I can like add to my collection. Is it like a really stupid thing to have to buy for so you can add to your collection? Yes, of course it is. Do I still like to use them? Absolutely. This one hit the mark. Number one, the other ones come in like a little like plastic tin. And maybe that's wasteful to the environment, but like for me, I really like those plastic tins. Like if my eyeshadows ever go bad, like I would still keep them in the tin, but you could take them out and like use the tin for something else, putting like Q-tips in or like some like little bobby pins or something. Like if you're traveling, you can decorate with them. They're cute. This one was just in a plain Jane normal cardboard package, and I was just like, what happened? What happened to the theme? No. And then honestly, the quality was not good. Shimmer formula, terrible, trash, dry. The mattes were just okay. They weren't very pigmented. You had to do a lot of blending, building to get them to work. And honestly, at this point, I think they're just reusing shades at this point. Just to be like, hey, here's our holiday palette. We know you like collecting them. We're going to give you basically the exact same thing, only in a different package. Nope. So disappointed. The other ones, I still like. I could still talk about those. This one, I was like, wow. Wow, we're really just going for the money, aren't we? The 8th one are the MAC and Stranger Things palettes. I don't think these were bad. Like they were decent quality, but you have to buy both in order to make like a super cohesive look. Because if you just bought one, like the amount of mattes to shimmers and the mattes that they chose versus the shimmers that they chose, I was just like, okay. I've never seen Stranger Things. I know. But it was on sale. Like it was on a steep sale, so I bought them. Now I know why they're on sale. Like honestly, like even having them both together, I was like looking at them and I was like, ooh, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what to do. Eventually I did create something. It was okay. It wasn't bad. But it was just definitely, they were palettes that like I would not be like, ooh, I really want to use that palette today. Even if I was going through my collection, like, oh, I forgot about these. Maybe I should use that. No, I'd be like, oh, I forgot about these. Okay, moving on. You know, it just didn't speak to me at all. They could have done much better. So this one really, really hurts me. It hurts me a lot because I love this brand. I love this brand. I review all of their stuff. The Apocalypse palette was such a disappointment for me. I was so excited for this. I feel like the colors looked really, really different online. And then when I got it and I looked at it, I was struggling to like come up with a look to do. The colors were all just so like very, very different. You had some bright, you had some grunge. I was just struggling with it. It was not a color story that spoke to me. Like at all. Like not even like a, oh, I think the quality of it is still really good. You know, the shimmers are still, this palette had a little bit more, so they have shades. Clarity does. I'll show you. I got the Croc palette. Let me show you. Where some of your shimmers are really nice and pressed in. But then you've got ones like these that are just very crumbly and glittery, and like, see, once you lay it down, do you see all those crumbles? And it just falls out all over your face, all over everything. I feel like that Apocalypse palette definitely had a lot more of those crumbly type shimmers that were just falling out all over the eye. Not a lot of those really good pressed. And then again, the mattes, like just the colors of the mattes, I was struggling so hard to come up with like a cohesive look within the palette. I think that one just really was just disappointing for me. So this last one, probably one of the worst I have ever tried. This is from Artist Couture. It is the Supreme Mauves palette. I had never tried anything from Artist Couture. And honestly, I did buy a couple more things recently, but I don't know. I don't know if I made a mistake. That's a terrible palette. That's so bad. That's probably one of the worst palettes that I have tried. Not even this year, but just like period. Okay, like it was so bad. The shimmers were so dry. Like I would literally sit there and rub in the shimmer and nothing would come up. I was just like, hello? is this plastic? Like, is this just meant to look like there's shimmers in the palette, but they're not? Because it was so dry, so crumbly. Could not get any payoff on the lid. It was awful. The mattes, not pigmented, splotchy, extremely patchy, and you pay like $56 for this palette. It was either $56 or $62. I can't remember. No, I don't even think, honestly, I would pay $30 for that palette. I would maybe pay drugstore prices for that palette. $10, $14. I might pay that for that palette. Not the amount that I spent. That was trash. Just as I thought. Trash. So that is it for today's video, talking about the 10 worst palettes that I tried in 2022. It's a brand new year now, so I'm excited to see what palettes I'm going to love versus what palettes I'm going to hate this year. Hopefully I love more than I hate. Maybe this year might be the year where I don't even have 10 to talk about. I might have less than that. You never know. We'll see. We'll find out. But those were the 10 that I hated. What palettes did you hate this year? What are some palettes you loved this year? Let me know all that down below. If you enjoyed, definitely give this video a thumbs up. If you have not yet hit that subscribe button quite yet, or click the little bell, I invite you to do so again. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye!